This podcast is brought to you by Living Swell Studios. When you want to record your next hit, broadcast your next live stream, or just need a quiet space to edit your videos, Living Swell Studios can accommodate all your needs. Located in New Orleans, they're equipped with a rehearsal hall, print shop, photography space, and more. Living Swell is your one-stop shop to facilitating your vision. Let them fulfill your music and video dreams. Hey, what's happening, y'all? This is the Professor Drew Bayham coming at you with another episode of Drew's Putting It Out There, the wonderful podcast where we deal with some barbershop banter and, just ideals, that are somewhat controversial, but as always makes good conversation. My special guest today for this episode is someone that I've pretty much been around since I planted foot in the culture. We've been friends and colleagues and bandmates and all that other good stuff for the past 25 years or so. But the reason why I really wanted him on the show is because, I've always respected his outlook on the culture, especially the culture of New Orleans. And, I think it's just one of the whenever you have someone like that around you, you always want them to give their perspective because their perspective is always a very, very interesting thing. And so without further ado, I want to introduce you to Dr. Brice Miller.
What's up, my friend? How you making?
All right, pretty good. I'm good.
Oh,
and on the boards, and he working them angles again, you know what I'm saying?
Yo, what's up? Y'all, the Al Heyman, the podcast.
Yes, indeed.
How y'all doing?
Give it up for Irv Darby.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Otherwise known as Mr. Roast Beef Jenkins. Yes, sir. All right, well, let's get into it. Now, I wanted to kind of make it light, but it's still gonna wind up being deep. Because I wanted to address this because I think you would have a very interesting take on it, and we haven't even discussed it. Mm-hmm. I have just an outlook about what in actuality is white privilege, because the reference that I'm using right now is Courtside Karen. Everybody kind of knows where she came from. Talking mad, Google guy to
it's the
brother,
LeBron.
The LeBron James.
Deal, right?
Yeah, the LeBron James, And so, and she went on social media to try to defend her position, talking about she's taking up for her old man, her husband. She's 25. Her husband is 62. Literally. So we know who got the courtside seats to the Hawks game.
Right.
And so it's, but it made me think about it because I was like, okay, is this just a case of just pure unadulterated white privilege? Or is it a case of rich white privilege? Or is it just of rich white woman privilege? Mm-hmm. Or, it's like there's so many things that you can kind of just throw it out there and make it. And for some reason, I just don't want to really make it white privilege because LeBron, the way it started was that her husband was heckling LeBron.
Okay.
And so it got to that point where he kind of crossed that line and LeBron mouthed back at him. And so, apparently this white woman said that, you can tell he's like, man, leave me alone. Go ahead on that, that bullshit.
So they stopped the game to deal with that. But they didn't get put out at that point.
Not at that point.
Okay.
They got put out because then she started cursing at him. Talking about I'm gonna whip your ass and just being. I was like, you kind of bold for a white woman who ain't nothing but 110 pounds soaking wet. Right. That type of thing. But, apparently, of course, the first thing that comes out of her mouth when she goes to social media is she was like, LeBron called me a stupid bitch or something like that. And so like I'm and I'm defending my man and this, that, and the other. I'm like, and I'm first of all, I'm thinking to myself, how are you a 25-year-old white woman trying to defend a 62-year-old white man?
Right.
I don't care. I don't care if y'all husband and wife, father and daughter.
Yeah, the roles seem reversed immediately from that point.
Really from that. So, which, like I said, which begs the question for me to just throw out there, are we experiencing a time frame where that we are literally beyond just white privilege? Because, I think as Black Americans, we've been able to kind of like help people identify what it is. And so now I just think that it just really comes to those, people who just believe they're elite. The elitism.
It's like she was trying to protect her bag at the end of the day. That's all.
And I have no problem with that. But, but at some point, it's kind of like, okay, but is there a privilege that goes in with that? Because you're still, fussing and cussing.
Right.
The pretty much who's probably gonna go down in history as the greatest athlete,
right?
Of all time.
Well, I think to hone in on what seems to be the primary question that you're asking is it white privilege, and what is white privilege, and to what extent of white privilege that is.
Right.
I think from my perspective, first I'd be remiss if I didn't say that many people might not know, but I'm a certified diversity specialist.
Right, yeah.
Right. So I worked at the University of Alabama as assistant director for diversity programming, both on and off campus, for 6 years. I have probably every certification that comes into play as it relates to diversity and all that type of stuff. So I just want to say that before I open my mouth.
Right.
All right. So,
That's all right. That's all right.
I want to say that.
Toot your horn, man.
I want to say it, not to toot the horn, but I want to say it so that there's a difference between working within those spaces and whatever those levels of certifications mean, and the reality of your question, which is white privilege, right? So I would counter with a question saying, have you ever walked down in the French Quarter, down the sidewalk, Canal Street, or in a mall, and saw a 1-2 in our group of white folk walking towards you on the same sidewalk?
No, not really.
You ain't never walked through the French Quarter and had white folk walking towards you.
Well, of course, but
and what happens as you get closer?
They would move. Yeah, they would move. Street. Or me being cognizant of there's a bunch of white folks and I might be by myself or I might just be with somebody else, and we are going to be perceived suspicious
a certain way. So you a certain way. So let me I should backtrack that, because that's a social connotation. So let's say you're on a university campus, right? Let's say Tulane, a space where I worked, and let's say University of Alabama. So if you're a Black individual walking down the sidewalk and there's 1, 2, 3 or more individuals walking towards you that are white, they will walk over you.
Yeah.
They will expect you to move out the way. Right?
Yeah, of course.
Why? White privilege.
Right.
Let's hone in straight on your question, this young lady, right? I would say that, yes, it's hyper white privilege. And if you were asking exactly like what is white privilege, white privilege is this expectation that that those individuals can do, say anything that they choose to do or say in any space to anyone, and that there is no repercussion for that.
Right.
So we can use whether it's LeBron's game, whether it's LeBron, or whether it's the Capitol from January 6th.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, no, we're fighting for our country. So we're going to go into this building and tear the Capitol up. And there's nobody that can do anything because we're patriots.
Right.
We're patriots. We're Americans.
Right.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But like many people have said immediately when that happened, honestly, what if that would have been 500 Black and brown folk?
We would have been dead.
It would have looked like Christmas Adams. We would have been slaughtered.
Well, I mean that with what you're saying, that it almost was that way, because when Black Lives Matter had their same march months beforehand, the National Guard was there guarding the Capitol building, guarding the White House, guarding all those things, and it's like, all right, we ready for you.
Well, not even that. I mean, right now in Texas, people are freezing, people are homeless, people are dying in the cold right now, and the National Guard was deployed to protect trash bins at supermarkets
Right.
that have thrown out food
Right.
that has expired.
Right.
You have people who are literally starving, have not had electricity for 4 or 5 days.
Right.
The National Guard was deployed to protect the trash.
trash.
Why? Because where are those supermarkets?
Yeah.
They're in black and brown communities.
Right.
Right.
Right. I mean, you were right. You were correct about that. You were correct about that.
You know, so I would say, you know, in her age, you know, with the thing of being 25, you know,
which is, I think, which is
they
right.
So what I'm trying to say is like the millennials, you
Yeah.
know, and the youngest, they have a hyper white privilege.
Right.
Right.
It's worse than when we were.
Right. The problem with them is they're very opinionated. They're super opinionated without the information.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I have little cousins. We'll talk about something. I'm 35. Me and my cousins in our 30s will have a conversation, and she'll hop into my. I feel like this, that, and the third. Like, hold up, you didn't live life long enough to know what the fuck you know what we talking about.
The weirdest thing with that is like, again, going back to when I was at UA, I taught a class for the honors college called Culture and Human Experience, right? So these are students who, firstly, they're honor students, and they're going to eventually, at some point throughout their matriculation, they're going to eventually travel internationally. So they're taking this class because we're talking about, you know, the roles and responsibilities of being culturally sensitive, that type of thing, right? And again, even at Tulane, working at Tulane is in the Center of Social Innovation. But the thing that would get me, I'm a grown-ass man,
Right.
PhD, highly experienced, and as you just mentioned, no matter what the topic is, it's I think.
Right.
I think.
Right.
Or I feel. Every sentence is started with I think or I feel.
Right.
Which means that what I am saying in front of you as the authoritative figure actually doesn't matter.
Right.
Because whatever Twitter feed you have read, whatever 120 characters, you know, which is their information base at this point, whatever 120 characters you have recently read that gave you some insight, now suddenly your opinion is worth an encyclopedia worth of knowledge.
Right.
So everything I'm saying is just a wash.
You know what it is? It's like they took subjective information and turned it into facts.
Yeah.
They feel as though this is my subjective information, this is facts. It's like, no, it's not facts. You sound stupid.
And you're not even trying to hone in on the facts.
Right.
Because you feel that you're factual already.
Right.
So nothing else matters.
Right.
You know, so with her being 25, you know, that's that hyper white privilege.
And her emotion, you can tell her emotions involved with it.
And then if he's 62 or however old, you know, I saw the way that he was dressed, they showed a picture of him. So, you know, if he's 62 or whatever and she's 25, you know, there's also like this economic privilege going on also.
Right.
Of course.
He got some bank from whatever he do.
And that's why I think that's what that hones in on. I don't think as much as white privilege. I think it was just the white wealthy woman's privilege, you know, which kind of actually like in the instant brought me back to reading $40 Million Slave. And so it was just kind of like, because you've paid all of this money for these seats right here at that type of thing, you know, you felt like that you have the carte blanche to tell somebody anything with absolutely no repercussions whatsoever because you paid for those seats.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, no, you're talking to an individual. You're talking shit to an individual who is already set up. He's going to be a billionaire. He's going to be a certified billionaire really soon.
But that doesn't matter to them because she wasn't talking to a billionaire.
Right.
She was talking to a black dude.
A black dude on a basketball court.
His legacy or nothing else mattered.
On an opposing team.
At that moment, it was a black man.
Right.
But no, what's funny to me, I think about how, what that was Ron Artest back years ago when he went to crowd. I be saying to myself, like, bro, they wouldn't be trying
you
this
haven't,
years ago.
you haven't seen it unless you see the,
see this stuff
Malice in the Palace.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, just, you know, it's just it was one of those things that for me, it's just kind of still kind of a lightheaded sort of issue because we know what it is, you know, but I just thought it was interesting because now, you know, in this day and age, we can literally like show a case every time about what this is. And for some reason, some people just don't get it.
It was as a black man, it has me thinking, you know, again, I mentioned these certifications. Where I got these certifications from is a program that was hosted at Reed College in Portland. and I would go every summer. It's it's Summer Institute of Intercultural Communication or something like that, right? So every summer I'm at Reed College for 3 weeks, something like that, right? And we would have roles and responsibilities, right? Like, so one evening, one of my roles was driving the van, which means like after each of the seminars, the guest speaker or whatever, you drive them back to their little apartment on campus.
Oh, of course.
Right. And I had the late shift. So my shift was something like 9 to midnight or something crazy, right? Now, all this is on campus, but if you're familiar with Reed College, the campus is immersed within the community, right? It's like all in one. Think of Tulane, but without fences and all that kind of stuff, right? So so anyway, I'm driving, right? And I noticed the police following me, right? Just not paying no attention to it.
Right, yeah.
Go to the little, university, get somebody, bring them to the apartment.
Right, yeah.
This goes on multiple times. I see the police following me.
Right.
I see the police following me, right? I see the police following me. Eventually, the police pulled me over and said, we got a call of a suspicious person driving a van taking the same route back and forth. I said, well, I don't know about how suspicious it is.
Right.
However, I am driving the van,
Right.
and I am taking a route
Right.
for the simple reason I'm a participant with this particular program. And right now, my role and responsibility is to drive the van, dropping individuals off at their respective drop-off locations. You know what I'm saying? Well, can we see your driver's license, so and so? So it turns into this thing. And the point that I'm making with that, the reason that I say they only saw LeBron as a black man is because here it is. I'm one of the few people at this intercultural conference. Right. Every summer, there was some type of situation that myself and some of my other black colleagues were involved.
Of course.
That was 100% race related.
Right.
Why? Because the van had been driven all day.
Right.
The van had been being driven all night.
Right.
It just happened to be this Friday night was my night duty.
Right.
To drive the van. Right. And I'm actually on the phone with my wife while this is all going on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So there was nothing. The only thing that was suspicious is that it was a black man.
Right.
Behind the wheel. There was nothing else suspicious about that.
Of course.
So with this LeBron thing, so at that point, it wasn't the fact that I wasn't a professor, I wasn't a doctor, I wasn't an academic. I was a black man.
Right.
Driving this van in this affluent white neighborhood.
Yeah.
Point blank. With her, LeBron is simply a black man bouncing the ball up and down the court.
Right. In other words, you're a black man. Entertain me.
Yeah.
That's it.
Shut up and chirp.
And no matter what I say, you're gonna.
Yeah, right.
If I tell you suck so and so, you're gonna just take it and keep on going. And you're supposed to sit down, later that evening, and like, why did she tell me I suck? Did I really suck? You're supposed to become insecure at that point.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You're not supposed to respond,
Right.
etc. But for her, she sensed that there is no repercussion because I have white privilege, I have white female privilege,
Right.
and I have white wealth privilege.
Right, yeah.
So I can say whatever the hell. And my old man is paying
The American
however many
trifecta.
thousands of dollars for these seats.
Right.
So
The American trifecta.
I can say whatever the hell I want to.
Right. All right. Let's kind of move on to some other subjects because I have a kind of a take and I'm kind of glad that I have you on, but more importantly, I'm glad you were able to put your perspective out there before I did. As some people may know, Dr. Brice Miller worked with Mayor Titi, Mayor Cantrell's a committee in the Office of Cultural Economy.
I was a part of her initial administration.
Initial. So, and without going and hashing into the whole thing, you were kind of just drummed out, so to speak, to whereas that, you were able to find the opportunity to walk away rather than be drummed out or, just fired for that matter.
I did something that very few people will ever take a professional chance at doing.
Yeah.
And I walked away from what many people may have saw was a golden opportunity.
Of course. And it's justified, that some people think that way because, we are so fearful of, just not taking the opportunity, what we see as opportunities to move up the political game, the political ladder, and that type of thing. But I have a kind of a take, because of you voiced your opinion about the mayor and her type of things. But I think, and definitely with some of the moves that she's been making. But my take is I'm trying to be objective about what her job is at this point. And I've just come to the conclusion that I just think that whatever she does, it's a damn if you do, damn if you don't situation, because we all kind of know, as we've seen in a couple of different places, but more so here in New Orleans, with just the way coronavirus is, kind of reared its ugly head, and us being a tourist city, and that our revenue stream just comes from tourism, because to be honest with you, I can't think of any other big revenue stream that the city actually has at its disposal. That's all we got. My dad, used to tell me about, just the industry that they had when, the oil companies had set up shop, set up shop in New Orleans. So and once they left, things just kind of, it's like, okay, well, we ain't got nothing else but, getting some people to come down for the football games and the Essence Festival and
tap dance in the French Quarter.
Right, tap dance in the French Quarter. Exactly. So, but I say that because I said, now, if I was, and I tried to put myself in her shoes at this point, at the point that we're in, and say, because people, if y'all don't know, Mayor Cantrell decided to cancel Mardi Gras, or just cancel Mardi Gras parades, anywhere where like the big giant gatherings are. So,
But first she invited
tourists.
First she invited tourists.
Which
say that you're welcome to come,
right?
And just act like New Orleanians.
Well, I was about to get to that.
Okay,
I was about to get to that.
That's not.
But but that's part of my take.
Okay.
So it's like it's a damn if she did, damn if she didn't. Because if she would have let Mardi Gras go, it would have been. I think it would have been the sole super spreader event that I think conservatives would have been able to take and say, see. It's only in those liberal Democrat cities where the virus is spreading. It's not spreading anywhere else, because, you're trying to herd immunity thing in Florida, where it's just like everybody
just go do your thing.
Go do your thing. You're going to get it. Work it out. Stay away from old people. Which, like I said, once again, it's a justified thing, but I don't think that's the right setup, because a lot of it is that now at this point, you ain't going to know who has it. But I realized why she did what she did. When like you said, first she says, when she first decided to cancel Mardi Gras, the parades and so to speak, she was like, yeah, tourists, you can still come to New Orleans, but do as the New Orleanians. Then she turned around and was like, bars are gonna be open, that type of thing. And so I thought about it. I was like, but wait a minute. But as she told people to come to New Orleans and do as New Orleanians, 3/4 of the hotels are booked, because she said you're still free to come down.
Come roll.
So I was like, okay, was this just a bait and switch? Simply to just get people to come to New Orleans and just to feed the industry, to feed the hotel industry, or to feed the restaurant industry, because restaurants were still able to be open. Right. So I think for me, I just believe that it was kind of a slick move, but it was literally for that.
Well, I don't know if I call it slick. You've watched the video for which I posted about, that. I didn't use the term slick. Right. I used the term incompetent.
Right.
And going back to essentially even what you're mentioning with me being a part of her initial administration, and then me choosing to walk away from that, right? Literally walk away from a 6-figure job.
Right.
And that's because my dad taught me a series of values. And one of the most important values that my dad taught me is you have to be willing to stand for something.
Right.
If you're not willing to stand for something, you literally will fall for anything. Yeah. Right? So just talking about the tourism thing, I'll give an example. Lance Bottoms in Atlanta.
Yes.
Okay.
Just recently made a statement for the NBA. Now, I don't know what's the NBA. Is it the All-Star game or something?
Yeah, I think it's
Something
the All-Star game,
with
yeah.
the NBA. And essentially what she said was, thinking about COVID, thinking about how deadly and et cetera this virus has been and the impact that it's having, that as great as NBA is and all the revenue that we know it would bring to Atlanta and all the people that it would bring to Atlanta, at this juncture in time, it's best for people to stay where they are, for people not to come to Atlanta, and we shall not host any events. And at this point, this is a made-for-TV event.
Yeah.
It's exactly what she said.
Right.
She stood her ground right there.
Right.
There was no ambiguity. There was no back and forth. There was no multiple statements.
Right, yeah.
She said she stood for it. Right. We know what it means for the city.
Right.
We know the economic impact that it has. We know the joy and the euphoria that it would bring to people.
Right.
But this ain't the time or the place right now. Let it be a made-for-TV situation.
Right.
Now, specifically with New Orleans, I've been saying for the last several months, I started this my Facebook Live podcast back in March of last year. And I've been saying forever that using innovation and having people with creative insight throughout this entire pandemic, even though we're a tourism city, we still could have been winning the tourism game in spreading the love and the joy of New Orleans music, culture, etc. In ways that when this is over with, we'd have so much tourism till it's crazy.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is you don't have individuals that have that experience, that expertise, that innovative insight, etc. Right? So, what we've been watching for months and months and months is let's just throw some shit against the wall and see what sticks.
Right.
That's our whole process in New Orleans has been let's throw some shit against the wall and see what sticks. Even going to this Mardi Gras thing, right? With the and I'm gonna just say it, man, because as you mentioned, I'm not only am I born and raised in this culture, I'm an anthropologist, I'm an ethnic. This is man, this means a lot to me. This culture. For the first time ever. Firstly, we know what the I-10 overpass did to Treme.
Of course.
We know what it did to Black community. We know what it did to Black culture.
Yeah.
And we
Straight through.
our community has never recovered from that.
Right.
What they term as resiliency, which ain't resiliency, but the resiliency of Black folk has been to turn that corridor into a cultural space for themselves. Right? For the first time ever, suddenly that is fenced off.
Right.
We're gonna put fence up. That's the only place in New Orleans.
Right.
We're not gonna put fence up in the Bywater.
No.
We ain't gonna put fence up on the levees.
On
We ain't
down
gonna put
St.
fence up down St. Charles. We ain't gonna put fences up in the Marini. We ain't gonna put fence up nowhere else. But where these Black folk gather.
Right.
Right.
But this the whole thing with throwing shit against the wall and see what stick. What's gonna stop you from knocking the goddamn fences down?
As they did.
So,
Right.
you see what I'm saying?
Right.
So
As they did.
the hilarity of all of this and the hilarity of what this administration has turned out to be. So let's give some white company, again, constantly talking about blackness.
Right.
Let's give some white company a couple of $100,000 to put up some temporary fencing
Yeah.
that can't be secured to the ground,
Right.
that can't truly lock people out.
Right.
So it's supposed to just be a deterrent. It's like putting a fake security camera in front of your house.
A dummy
Yeah.
camera.
Or putting,
dummy camera.
putting that sign. Putting that
Put
little
the
sign. Yeah.
Right.
And like a thief gonna look at that and be like,
That's not hooked up.
"No, I'm not gonna do this today."
Right.
So what happened 48 hours after they put the fence up?
Somebody knocked it down.
Somebody went and knocked the fence down.
Right.
So what did we end up seeing from? What was that? What day that was that we? One day we drove Friday. So from Friday until Wednesday morning, there were NOPD at every intersection.
Yeah.
From Orleans to St. Bernard,
Right.
protecting the fence that you
Right.
just paid for.
Right. That don't make no sense.
Yeah.
Bruh, Saturday
a
Night
better
Live
way-
can't even do that.
Right.
Realtors. Do you need some special aerial photography or video footage? Or maybe you need some stock footage of the city for your presentation? Or maybe a beautiful shot of a landmark just to hang on your wall? Well, time for you to check out DM NOLA Shots. They are a drone photography and videography company established in New Orleans who specialize in capturing aerial 4K video and photo. Check out the website at www.dmnolashotsllc.com or follow us on social media at DM NOLA Shots on Instagram and Facebook. DM NOLA Shots.
Which kind of brings me to another subject that I wanted to talk about, because even though you're kind of born and raised uptown, you still have had the privilege, so to speak, of growing up in New Orleans East.
But who's born and raised uptown?
What about you?
Yeah. You're right. I was born in Carrollton. I forgot.
Look, the other side of Canal Street,
Go. I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead. Go ahead.
No, but you've had the privilege of being of coming up and getting your feet in to a place like New Orleans East.
Mm-hmm.
And as we always talk, because we always have these conversations about the draw, the attraction to coming back after Katrina, the things that led us to come back to New Orleans and of course we all have the consensus is that it's like there's no other place like it. But mainly it's like, okay, we see what we see and what we saw, what we grew up in, is a shell of itself. Mm-hmm. And the only way that it would ever even return to some type of grace or some type of glory is if we are the ones who take it, because we know how it was supposed to be or how it was, in its glory, in its heyday, so what have you. I opened this up because I wanted you to kind of just give for the people what was the thing that led you to come back, because I think your story is very interesting. Because you didn't have to. By no means did you ever have to, because your life, in every other facet was just so much better.
Yeah.
Even for me, when I went to Georgia, I lived in Georgia for 2-3 years, and I saw the networks and the things that made people go, man, New Orleans is a piece of shit ass city, and then because I went to Houston, and man, like they accept me with open arms. I got a house, my child is in a better school, and this, that, and the other, blah, blah. And I would always kind of debate with those type of people when they would talk like that, because I'm like, look, I get it. Compared to going into Houston. Because what you fail to realize is that, you didn't go to Houston.
Right.
You went to Katy.
Yeah.
You went to the what they call it, the not the Meadowlands,
DFW.
the Woodlands. Yeah.
Yeah. And all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You went to the Woodlands and all of that, all of those other places. Mm-hmm. And they have an independent school system, so all of the tax dollars are going into
those spaces.
Those spaces. Yeah, we don't necessarily see that. I say it now. You can't, and I think it's an apples and oranges comparison when you're talking about the school system. Of course, like on a national level, Louisiana as a state sucks. If that's the threshold by which you judge, the school systems and that type of thing. But I'm like, I believe, it's just my own belief, is that school systems, whether you're in here or you're in Timbuktu, it literally depends upon the relationships parents have with teachers, teachers have with students, and their ability to help you progress instead of, reach the threshold.
Well, there's a lot that you're asking here. There's a lot that you're mentioning here. And I think going back to like what made us come back, it's almost first like, what is New Orleans, right? But something that you said that was very important, which was the word we. We feel like we know what it takes to make things better.
Right.
We feel like we know what it takes to correct the wrongs, right? And that was something that coerced me to decide to say, should I uproot my family from, like you mentioned, this small American suburban life where, you know, I have my son standing right here, and at the time, I can't even think how old little Brice was, you know, 5, 6 years old. But essentially, we lived in firstly, I'm gonna give it a history, you know. But just the point I'm trying to make is, like, when we were in Tuscaloosa, when I was at the University of Alabama, we lived in a private subdivision. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
With police patrol.
Yeah.
You know, and my son and daughter, you know, I mean, they were toddlers, man, but we'd open the front door at like 9 o'clock, man, and they go outside and start riding their little bicycles and tricycles and so and so and so and so. And man, we ain't have to worry about nothing.
Right.
We ain't have to worry about nothing. Bro, we never locked the back door of our home. Literally the entire time we lived there.
Wow.
We never locked the back door of our home. We have a house in Mississippi, the house that we bought after Katrina in Columbus, Mississippi. So another example, we moved back to New Orleans in 2012, 2013, something like that, right? We would go back to that house maybe once, twice, 3 times, 4 times a year, something like that.
Yeah.
I have old school cars in the driveway. The house is fully furnished, like somebody lives there. The back door of the house has never been locked.
Wow.
My neighbors cut the grass, take care of the property,
Right.
get my mail out the mailbox. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
No one has ever entered our property. Never. There's not anything that we've ever had to worry about. So I say that to kind of set the tone.
Right.
The idea that we knew what it took to come to make things better. That actually even goes back to me accepting the position, going back to Cantrell.
Yeah.
Right. And I haven't talked about much of this publicly, as you know. You know, you and I have had a lot of these conversations, but I've never talked about it publicly. But you the homie, and we're gonna make this blow. Right? Plus it's Lent, the second day of Lent, right? So I'm clearing out my cashier.
Right. It's right.
I'm gonna have a much better 2021.
Right. Yeah. Oh,
you know,
man.
but like even with so you know, my dad, God rest his soul, my dad hated the fact when I announced to the family that I was going to take that position. Right. And she came to me.
Right. Yeah.
I still have the voicemails. She came to me multiple times.
Yeah.
I said no. She came to me again. I'm running a business. Everything in life is great for me.
Right.
I don't need that.
Right.
Plus, I have a particular political stance. I don't believe in politics.
Right.
You know, because I've never seen black politics make greater opportunities for the black community.
Right.
And I've been following politics since I was a teenager. You know, I'm in my 40s now. I've never, especially here in New Orleans, we have seen black politicians that have helped other black folk
Right.
become enriched.
Right.
But then, as you and I know, we have also seen 90% of those same black folk end up in prison.
Right.
End up caught up in some type of scandal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out
Yes.
Ray
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? We've seen that.
All trying to pull a Robin Hood.
Yeah, so you know, so firstly, that was my stance. However, so my dad hated that. I mean, literally vocalized it.
Right.
You know, black man, City Hall ain't never done nothing for black folk, man. I don't want, you know, we have a family name we've been building,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. And bro, it was hard on me because my dad was my everything.
Right, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? My mom
Right.
couldn't stand the fact. My mother-in-law couldn't stand the fact. My mother-in-law would call every morning. Literally, I got chills saying it. Every morning, my mother-in-law would call me and say, "Son, be careful."
Right.
Every morning. So that was their stance on it. However, I said, my wife and I had a long conversation about this. You know why I said yes, Drew? Because of what you said. We know what it takes
Right.
to make this better.
Right.
I have known every single director of culture. You know that office has had different names.
Right,
Every
yeah,
administration has been a different name.
Yeah.
However, that's just for the sake of this conversation called the Office of Cultural Economy.
Right.
I have personally known, in business-wise known, every director of that office going back to Jackie Harris,
Yeah.
which is Mark Morial.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So Mark Morial, he also had Eugene Green, who worked out for his community development.
Right.
That's the same time I'm in high school starting my own company and starting Mahogany Brass Band. Eugene Green and Morial used to book me as a high school student for events.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So from
That was the music commission.
it was the Music Commission,
The
and
New
New
Orleans
Orleans
Music Commission, yeah. Right.
which was based on the State Music Commission,
Right.
which Ellis Marcellus was on.
Okay.
Right? So they couldn't get Ellis to come over to the city.
Right.
So they tried to mimic what the state was doing.
Okay.
Right? And it was some other, iteration, like even under Bartholomew.
Right.
There was some sense, because my dad with Pinstripe Brass Band, so like when Bartholomew was mayor, my dad and them spent so much time in Europe and in Japan and stuff representing the city.
Yeah.
My uncle, my parent, Hilton Carter, was big dog in Zulu. So I'm simply saying, these people used to come to our house, man.
Yeah.
So I've been knowing these people since I was a kid, right? So then throughout, Nagin, even throughout Mitch Landrew, I got to know. I either worked with and or knew all of the cultural directors.
Right.
After I said yes, and this is what nobody ever knew publicly. After I said yes, guess what I did? I met with each of those individuals. Each of them.
Right.
To not only get the blueprint,
Right.
what needs to be done, what didn't work, blase.
Right, yeah.
But I say all that to say, man,
As a well-read, educated person would do.
let's finally get this shit right.
Right.
You see
What
I'm
went
saying?
wrong? What went right? What do you? Yeah.
Let's get it. You and I are unique when it comes to music because we do the brass band, we know the streets, we do the funerals.
Right.
We've done the dope dealer funerals,
Yeah.
but we play the big band, we play the high-end venues, we
Right.
play jazz at Lincoln. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah.
We are unique in that sense. And that same sense, being real, you and I also know the musicians who are strung out on heroin. We know the ones who are strung out on crack. We know the ones who are homeless. We know the ones who are bouncing from post to post and pillow to post and all that kind of stuff. So again, and we went to school with some of these people.
Right.
We played in bands with
You're
some
playing
of these
bands
people.
with them, yeah.
So this is personal. So I'm like, okay, I have all of this insight. I have all of this knowledge. Now I have this additional knowledge from the individuals who served in these roles.
Right.
Maybe God made my intention of coming back to New Orleans, and I'm gonna come back to that.
Yeah.
Maybe God made my intention of coming back to New Orleans this particular position.
Right. Yeah.
Because this is the one thing outside the classroom, outside of running a business, this is the one thing that I can do that can really change people's lives.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So the first thing I did was I created a 7-point strategic plan. We're gonna deal with economic development. We're gonna deal with professional development. Man, I had even working with Job One to get training for musicians,
Right.
these younger musicians, so that they could have a day gig
Right.
and then play music at night.
Right.
Because all you're doing is hanging out, either sleeping or getting yourself in trouble during the day.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I would, so all that was a part of the plan. Why? Because we know what it took,
Right,
know what
yeah.
it would take
Right.
to make things better.
Right.
But at the same time, that goes against the political system.
Right.
Because you really don't want.
You don't want that.
You don't want people doing better for themselves.
Right.
Why? Why do you want more people in the middle class?
It takes the power away from them.
You gotta depend on me.
Yeah, if I empower, the more people you empower, that's the less people that gotta depend on me as this political caricature.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I say all that to say, man, we had, as you mentioned, man, we had no reason to come back to New Orleans. I left New Orleans in 2005 with 3 beautiful kids. My son was 4 months at the time. I had a master's degree. Had just finished my master's degree. My wife was a LPN, and in our time, we immediately moved to Columbus, Mississippi. February 2006, my wife and I bought us a brand new house. That same time, we was buying investment properties, apartment complexes.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, we were doing our thing. We had no complaints in the world. Still doing business here in New Orleans.
Right.
We rebuilt our house here. We come to New Orleans once or twice a month to still do business here.
Right.
And we were both just continually excelling in our own spaces.
Yeah.
Like 2007, I went to the University of Alabama where I joined the staff of the Department of Community Engagement, right, as assistant director there.
Yeah.
And literally winning awards every semester. Ended up getting a PhD, or started my PhD, because my mentors are all VPs, and they're like, man, you perfect VP material.
Right.
So I said, I'm climbing. I'm climbing.
Right.
My wife went back and got her RN. She's climbing. She's climbing. We lived in a private subdivision. Our kids went to private school.
Right.
My 2 older girls are going to excellent schools in Atlanta. We put them in that. We sent them to Atlanta with their mom to get away from the racism fray
Right, yeah.
of the South. So everything is lovely.
Wow.
we had no reason to come back to New Orleans. But New Orleans is like this love song that just doesn't end. It's on constant repeat, you know. And as our baby kids are getting older, we're like, my wife and I, and we had some family issues. My brother was in a very serious incident. My dad ended up having a stroke in 2010. So those things, in my father-in-law, fell ill. So it was a combination of really that aspect that was like my wife and I began having the conversation. Should we move back?
Yeah.
Because at this point we're going back every weekend dealing with family.
Right, yeah.
So should we move back? And then you make those excuses. Oh, the music,
Right.
the food, the culture. Let's give the opportunity for Brice and Zoe to experience, second line parades and all that kind of stuff. So and so. So we created this fog for ourselves of why we should come back.
Right.
So
but as we were talking, in our pre phone call, I think what it was is that it wasn't necessarily like just the food and stuff, but it was that one thing that you probably couldn't get anywhere else in the world that, was the most attractive part of, it's kind of the same thing that I have, that I've always said, a lot of women have, accused me of being quite chauvinist. But, there's certain things that there's certain things I believe. I believe that women are kind of just the most possessive creatures on the face of this earth.
And they'll never apologize.
And they'll never apologize for it. And so...
No, they'll never apologize for anything.
Preach.
They won't apologize for anything.
Preach.
But I digress.
But part of it is that, they'll literally give up their 90 for that 10 that they thought they lost. And I feel guilty for feeling that way about New Orleans, just about the city, is that, I was, well, let me rephrase that. And when I was in Georgia, I was working. I was in the studio 18-hour days. There were always some famous rapper that would come through the studio, and I would work, and I was making decent money, and we lived pretty well because we weren't in Atlanta proper. We were out in Douglasville, where I was able to get 5,000 square feet of land and with a house on it for $100,000.
$120,000, you good?
Right. So I was good. I was good, but for some reason, whenever somebody called me to do a gig, I got on.
That's the same thing.
Took 20 to 59 straight down.
Man, I spent so much time on the interstate, I same thing, 59 to I-10, that I think sometimes I probably would sleep and the car was just on autopilot because I had done it so much.
Yeah.
Including I filmed season 1 and season 2 and season 3 of HBO's Treme. Man, I would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, hit the road because we had to be on location for 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, you're not letting me skate around things that I want to skate around. And you're right. You're right when you're right when it comes to, a woman being, willing to give up her 90. And that's the beauty of women, and especially black women. And we don't give them enough public credit for that. So for me, I mentioned all the things that, all the joys that we did have. And I had a great job. I've always said I had 2 great jobs in my entire life. I haven't had a whole lot of jobs. I haven't worked for a lot of people. But when I worked for New Orleans Public Schools as director of jazz and cultural, as the coordinator before Katrina, best job literally, best job I ever had because I was in my full element. And I would say my second job was when I was at the University of Alabama because I was able to. My VP, who was the only African American VP on campus, but the one thing that we talked about in my pre-interview was me being able to open my wings and just fly. So the things that he allowed me to, be as creative as I wanted to be, and he supported me in that fashion. However, and again, you mentioned the opportunities of property purchasing in Georgia. We lived in, again, a private subdivision, and we lived in the biggest house that we've ever lived in. I think the house was something like 4,700 square feet. You know what I'm saying? I mean, humongous house, bro. We had 3 living rooms. 3 living rooms. You know what I'm saying? The house was so big that we never literally used the majority of the house. You know what I'm saying? So in that sense, you would think you've accomplished it all. That's
Right,
that's
yeah.
what people wake up every day and go to work for.
Right.
But at the same time, throughout that entire duration, I felt a sense of hollowness in me. And as you and I talked offline, I never performed in Tuscaloosa.
Right.
I never performed. So all of my performance was New Orleans.
Right.
And as joyful as it was to see myself ascending in that my academic professional space, I wasn't happy.
Right.
I found myself coming home drinking every evening. My wife and I, we found ourselves tense because I'm dealing with culture and racism and stuff all day. So then I'm coming home and I'm unloading that shit on her.
Right.
And she like, man, my wife's a nurse. So she's like, bro, I'm saving people's lives every day.
Right.
I'm watching people come in with, 190 blood pressure, and 30 minutes later we went back to give that person their medicine and they was on the bed dead.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I don't want to hear about all this other stuff.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So another big part of coming back home was really to feed my ego,
Right.
or to feed my hollowness, which was my music.
Right.
Including the point of my wife saying, why don't you just purely just do your music?
Right.
But my dad didn't raise me that way.
Right.
So I never felt comfortable saying I'm gonna just do my music.
Right.
But at the same time, when I came back, going back to that what
Right,
we
yeah,
can
you-
do to make a difference,
uh-huh.
what I realized was that we were passed by.
Right, yeah.
Because nothing was the same. The school system wasn't the same. There was literally no opportunities.
Right.
So with, literally like a month before I turned in my resignation letter at University of Alabama, I got professional staff
Right. Of course.
of the year. Literally, a month before I came back.
Of course.
And then here it is, I come back to New Orleans, and I never forget this, man, because it was hard. It was really hard. Literally, like, I never forget, they must have been like the first 5-6 applications that I submitted for job opportunities,
Rejections.
which was the most job applications I've ever filled out in my life. Because every job I didn't have many jobs.
Right, yeah.
So I started the school board right at the high school.
Right.
Right at the college. Boom. It was like, pick your school you want.
Right.
University of Alabama. I submitted an application online. I got a phone call. I got an interview the following week. 2 days later, I got accepted a job.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I didn't have a lot of experience of like going through this whole process of filling out applications and stuff. So here it is. I come back to New Orleans. I want to make a difference.
Right.
Now, PhD, master's degree.
Yeah.
Award-winning educator on every level, not only K through 12, but now
You're right.
university. I've been winning awards for 6 years
Right.
on the campus. I'm doing diversity work. How many black people do diversity work?
Right.
This whole thing, right, is, so we've been dealing with for the last 2 years, the last year, this whole thing about diversity, inclusion, and equity. Bro, I've been doing that since 2007.
Right.
This ain't, that ain't, and I got
That ain't
the
new.
certifications. It ain't
Right.
new for me. So I have all of this that I've built, this entire portfolio. And what they tell you as a black man, you got to build that portfolio. You got to
build
have
it,
that
yeah.
education. You got to have them certifications. So here it is. I built this massive portfolio. And here it is, the first, like I say, 6, 7 jobs I applied for in New Orleans. I'm rejected for them all.
Yeah.
So at that point, it become like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, no, I totally understand that, because for me, when I talk to people, that's the major problem. The major problem
there's no
is that
opportunity here.
there's no opportunity here. There's no this, that, and so, and then I realized what it really did was made me understand how privileged I actually was, because my privilege is in the fact that I am a musician first and foremost throughout everything else, because I mean I have a number of different streams of income, and but one thing this pandemic has taught me is that I need some more, because all of them are rooted
In people.
in people
Engagement.
right?
Yeah. That's where I am.
And so, with the exception of about 1 or 2, so it was an eye-opening experience for me, and I wound up doing things that I had never done before. But the thing that literally drew me back to New Orleans, like I said, from being in Georgia, because like I said, you're living cheap land, 30 minutes from the city, all that type of stuff, which is kind of, I think, one of the reasons why I came back home, because I couldn't get used to that shit at all. I'm like, you can get from one end of the city to the other, in 15 minutes flat.
Well, I mean, up until recently, my oldest daughter lived in Atlanta. She's been living in Atlanta since 2008, something like that. You know what I'm saying? And again, They lived on the outskirts, you know, lived Lawrenceville or something like that. Beautiful apartment, good job, everything they needed.
Right.
You know, my second oldest daughter, she moved back with us to New Orleans with us when we moved to New Orleans, right? Graduated from Bard College. She's in New York. Bruh. She works for CBS Morning News.
Wow.
Yeah.
She did internships with MTV, BET, Viacom, graduated from, so this is every summer, graduated, Viacom hired her. She's working for MTV, right? She works for MTV for like a year. Then all of a sudden, CBS reaches out to her.
Right.
Bro, she's 24. She just turned 25 last week.
Right.
And she's an associate producer for CBS Morning News.
Yeah.
You think that opportunity would have been presented for her here in New Orleans?
Not New Orleans, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? She just turned 25 years old.
Yeah.
You know, she lives in a beautiful apartment, and you know, we got her first apartment.
Yeah.
Recently, she was like, I'm ready to expand a little bit, and specifically told my wife and I don't want y'all help. I'm gonna do it on my own. You know what I'm saying? All I want y'all to do is approve it. Approve the space.
Right, yeah.
But I'm gonna deal with the credit, the finances, everything on my own. Man, she just got her another really nice, beautiful apartment in Brooklyn. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I say all that to say, man, is that we had that yearning to come back to New Orleans, but you know, New Orleans is like that. I always say New Orleans is like that lover that you just love, but that lover that's constantly abused you and never really loved you back.
Toxic.
And what you and I
Toxic
both
love,
experienced is coming back to New Orleans is that we came back to this toxic relationship. Because of our expertise, we have been able to make a way for ourselves.
And it's not necessarily that we weren't forewarned, because I'm going to a conversation, that one of the first real conversations that I had with Ellis Marcellus. You know, I was messing up in school. I was at UNO. At the time, I'm messing up in school. I was late for class, the whole nine. So he says, bro, you know, send me in my office. Let's talk. You know, son, what do you want to do? You know, I started running down. I want to be a producer, writer, thing, this, I want to be that, I want to go there. And so he said, you know, I'm going to tell you what I told my sons. People come to New Orleans to develop their craft. People leave New Orleans to develop their careers. And it stuck with me because I actually made an effort to kind of leave New Orleans and spread my wings.
Because you went to New York for a minute, right?
I was in Berkeley, at Boston.
Okay.
You know, so I had that moment, but I just, you know, for some reason,
it's like a drug. New Orleans is like a drug, man. It really is. It just, I mean, I've never been on drugs, so I shouldn't say that. You know, and I can't say what I will probably say as an alternative because my son is standing right here. You know, but New Orleans is that thing that just. It's just
it's not a drug. It's more of an addiction.
Let it be that.
It's an addiction.
You know, it just
we all have
pulls
a vice,
you, man. Yeah, you know, it's a vice. Put it like that.
Yeah, it's a vice.
It just it pulls you, man. And you know, it's been hard. So all of my kids know that. You know, the two older ones know, you know, I mean, they're doing great where they are. You come here to visit every now and then. It's not very frequent. And my two youngest, you know, I mean, we're already looking at what universities they're going to potentially be attending. They're not going to be here. Right. And they already know that when that time happens, y'all bouncing. Ain't no coming back. Right. You know, you may come back from Mardi Gras every 5 years or something like that, but you're getting the hell up out of New Orleans, man. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't want my kids. And that's the heartbreaking thing for somebody who's dedicated his life to education, dedicated his life to community, you know, dedicated his life to community betterment, those type of things. And to see how time and time again, and year again, I just got an email before I came here, man, about, you know, some new campaign that one of these, you know, organizations are doing, you know, using, I love New Orleans or some crazy shit that. But the thing about it is that it's the same people, the same names I've been seeing for the last 15, 20 years. You know what I'm saying? And it's like Einstein told us, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. And that's what New Orleans is, man. We just continually elect the same people, you know, and again, incompetent is my term. You know, it is what it is. We keep electing people that don't have the community betterment as their priority. Right. It's always, you know, city council chairperson, whatever they call it, and mayor. That's all. There's constantly been a stepping stone, for something else
for the next political move.
They don't really give a damn about New Orleans, man. It's all about their team getting some good press licks, getting some good video, getting some good pictures of you kissing and hugging black kids, especially poor black kids. They're not gonna hug and kiss Bryce and Zoe, but they're gonna get some poor black kids with boogers in their nose and shit like that. You know what I'm saying?
You know, well, no. As you're saying that, I was just thinking about that. I remember one time I was still in high school, and CNN was doing a story on the Heritage School, Kid Jordan's school, and I was going at the time. They was like, nah, Drew, we need you to come. And just all of the prior students. We went from there to Noka, that type of stuff. And so they interviewed me, and so they asked me, what part of the city do you live in? I said, well, I live in the Desire neighborhood. And then she was like, the Desire neighborhood. I was like, yeah, the Desire neighborhood is in the Ninth Ward, da 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 da. So I see the thing on CNN the next day, and it's Andrew Baham from the Desire Project.
Yeah.
And it's like, why did you have to do that?
Because it's that narrative.
Yeah, it's the narrative. It makes sense to me. Because they just want the most drama out of the whole situation. They want the most sympathy. They want to draw the highest of sympathies,
and they kind of want to also continue to show just that the poorness, And again, going back to what I was saying, that's one of the heartbreaking things, even with coming back, is that we're just seeing the cycle continue.
Right.
This is the cycles that we're seeing with poverty, the cycles we're seeing with lack of education, the cycle we're seeing with youth violence. Is the same things that we were talking about in 1990 and 1991. It's the same reasons that I ended up changing my major at Xavier from pharmacy.
Right.
Because I grew up in New Orleans East, as you mentioned, and there was the gentleman who lived on the corner of Curran and Pebble Drive. We lived on Pebble. He lived at Curran and Pebble. He was a pharmacist. He had a red Porsche.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So the example of
that was the example.
Yeah.
So my dad was the example of work ethic. My dad worked for Coca-Cola, but he also played music and traveled the world playing music.
Right.
So that was that side. So that gave me that entrepreneurial and that hustle spirit. You know what I'm saying? But then I had this gentleman down the street who had the red Porsche.
Right.
He went to work for 8 hours a day in his white suit. So when I went to Xavier, I majored in pharmacy.
Yeah.
So I can have the best of both worlds. I can play music. And I can be the pharmacist.
Right.
I can get my Porsche.
Right.
But I ended up, I had my first kid at 19. So I ended up getting a job. And my first job, the job I ended up getting was at Orleans Parish Prison. And I'm this little skinny, nerdy dude, with glasses. I'm a little frail dude. So, of course, they ain't going to put me on at like CCC or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
So I ended up they put me in juvenile. And it was a blessing because the young people immediately started relating to me.
Right.
Bro, I just graduated from high school last year. I got dudes that's 16, 17 years old waiting to get off juvenile life.
Right.
And I remember they had this big old dude, bro. This dude was 17 years old. He had been doing juvenile life since he was 14 years old. Bro, which I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I had the kind of relationship where I'm just like talking to him.
Right.
Man, what you did, man, so and so and so. I mean, I killed 3 people.
Yeah.
14 years old.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So this became my space. So here it is, this one here, man. My dad killed my mom on crack. All the discussions, and I'm like, I actually started feeling guilty because I grew up in New Orleans East. I grew up with mom and dad. I had a swimming pool in the backyard.
Right.
My dad was a musician. My dad gone half the summer. My mom joined the military when I was in the 8th grade. My mom gone all summer. I was the Black Ferris Bueller. I'm throwing parties and shit. You know what I'm saying? I had the keys to the car. I'm throwing parties in the backyard. You know what I'm saying? Strangely, my wife lived across the street from me, but never came to none of the parties. She didn't speak to me. But I'm this little outward dude, so I'm feeling guilty of like, man, look how I grew up in these stories. Bruh, I changed my major from pharmacy to education.
Yeah.
Thinking that, okay, I need to be the part of the solution.
Right.
Let me help these dudes. You know what I'm saying? What can I do to help the next generation?
Right.
And I mean, my career as an educator, it has been so rewarding. Honestly, it has been rewarding. But at the same time, again, as we talk about what does New Orleans mean and coming back to New Orleans, the hardest part of my existence has been coming back to New Orleans.
Right.
Because I'm seeing the same poverty. I'm seeing the same stories.
Again,
I'm seeing the same headlines. NOLA.com don't even have to be creative with headlines no more. All they got to do is just put the term in and it pop up because they got so many of them that say the same shit.
Right.
Another murder, another black man dead, another
Murder.
black man dead.
Right.
It usually is, yeah. You know, murder. How many murdered? What part of the city?
Town? Yeah.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And,
You know.
and it's heartbreaking, man. And it's even more heartbreaking because I have a 15-year-old son.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have a black boy. And as we all know, the hardest thing in America is to raise a black boy.
Yes, it is.
And when you come to a city like New Orleans, that again, on all of our brochures for marketing, all of our marketing brochures for tourism and for festivals, yeah, everybody having a good time. But we know, we know that that's not our daily reality. I'm scared every time my son leaves the house. You know what I'm saying? I'm so scared to the point, bro, that after leaving City Hall, I made professional decisions to concentrate on my business and my nonprofit so that I can be with my kids as much as possible. I volunteer at my son's school. I'm not trying to be a hyper parachuting parent. I'm not. I'm not trying to be this parent that's not going to allow him to be able to enjoy and explore what it means to be a teenager. However, I also am not going to allow him to be another statistic.
Because you've seen enough.
I've been
statistics.
I've been in this gumbo.
You've been, you've been in the midst of the statistics so much so.
I've lost so many students.
So now you have this, but you can't help but to be this hyper parent. I had the same discussion with Tanya Boyd Cannon. You know, she had the same thing. It's just, try not to be, because you want your kid to live their life the best way they possibly can. But you have to keep them on. You have to put them on game.
I'm so scared when he go to college. I'm sure he gonna run buck wild. You know what I'm saying? But man, it's scary, man. And again, just even going back to this whole thing with politics, man, and my time at City Hall, man, bro, it was so heartbreaking. I'm gonna just say it. It is what it is. It was so heartbreaking, man, sitting in these high level meetings and hearing the way that certain people in charge talked about the community. Like they weren't anything. Fuck them people. You know, people can't pay their water bill. Fuck them people. They got to figure out how to pay the water bill. But the billing system is broke. Fuck that. Ain't our problem. Bro, and I don't even want to go into detail, but I would walk out and call my wife. At this point, my wife worked at Tulane downtown. So the strange thing is that my office was literally 4 blocks from my wife's office. So we would end up like having lunch together and shit like that. But I would call her when I leave out these meetings because I needed somebody to just like, it was almost like therapy. It was bro.
Yeah, you had to let it, unload it.
It was like, bro, these people don't give a fuck. Excuse my language.
Yeah.
But it was like, so I've been studying politics my whole life. Now think about it. Now you finally get the opportunity to get to the belly of the beast. You see what I'm saying? Now let me see if everything I've been thinking and reading and feeling, let me see if it's just me or if it's actually real. So now I'm in the belly of the beast. And it's like, these people have no compassion.
Are you kidding me?
No empathy. They don't give a fuck. They're only serving self-interest.
I think the thing that infuriates you kind of like the most is just the fact that people have told you that. But for some apparent reason, you were very optimistic and you just really didn't want to believe it.
I didn't want to believe it. It couldn't be true. There have to be more people like Brice Miller that's trying to make these communities better. Because I could have been, again, you and I both, we could be selfish. The same success that I mentioned in Tuscaloosa, let's not get it twisted. That success was in place before I left. Before Hurricane Katrina. You know what I'm saying? I bought my first house at 21. I've been, I'm humble. I hate saying it, but I've been doing my thing. I've been blessed. And my dad put me on that grind. You know what I'm saying? So I lived in a great community before Hurricane Katrina. My older kids, when they were young, went to private school. Were the only black kids in Montessori on South Carrollton Avenue. You know what I'm saying? So I could have easily been that selfish cat and say, I'm going to move in the gated community on the West Bank somewhere. I ain't got to worry about your child or your child, nobody else. I'm good. I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to do my little pharmacy again. You know what I'm saying? I could have been that. But that's not who the Millers are. That's not how I was raised. I was raised as that strong black man and to give back.
And be that representation for other people as to, where we need to be as a society.
Exactly.
I think that's why I talk so much. I stomp so much for Punch Train Park. It's my stomping ground. Why? Because I saw doctors, teachers, lawyers, any type of white collar setup. I saw, but I didn't have to go very far to go down to the lower ninth ward and see all the blue collar guys, blue collar people who made beautiful neighborhoods and made beautiful communities being blue collar workers, and understanding is not that you can't, that was the ceiling. No, it's like, no, I'm expound on this rather than going to English term.
Yeah. My dad exposed me to so much. I started doing the brass band thing and the second line thing and the Mardi Gras Indian thing. And, I started doing that stuff when I was in probably 6th grade, something like that. But one of the things that my dad would always do is he would drive me around town and like show me these different communities. Now my dad grew up in the Cali Housing Project. My mom grew up in Carrollton. But he would always bring me to the different projects, especially where he grew up on Galvez, the courtyard at Galvez Street. Always point up, that was our window. You know what I'm saying? But he would always like, how do you want to live and where do you want to live? We go to the Garden District, we go to St. Charles Avenue. You want to live here, you want to live this, you want to live this. But then after that conversation, we took that long drive to New Orleans East.
Right.
Where we were one of the first black families in our neighborhood.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So he showed me through example, but he planted that seed of what I wanted. Right. But he also planted that seed of understanding that it's your responsibility to give back. Right. It's your responsibility to help the next generation be better.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And for you not to be selfish and for you to do whatever you can do.
Right.
So again, that's something I dedicated my life to. But then again, coming back to New Orleans, and just seeing that there's such lackluster in the people of power, in the people of authority,
right?
And we could say this. I know there's some other topics we want to talk about, like Jasmine Sullivan and stuff like that. So I know we've been talking about this a minute, but just but just in
this
closing,
is the part I like because it's just
But in closing, and nothing against this person, what I'm about to say, but I was picking my daughter up from school today. My daughter had school today, and there was a commercial that came on, and it was about Troy Carter.
Yeah,
and it was like I got the pamphlet for Troy Carter, and then the voice is saying like do you know Troy Carter? You know he's voted for this and this and this. But what it ended by saying was Troy Carter has essentially ran for every political space and opportunity available, no matter what it was. Right. Whether it's council person or whether it's Congress or whether it's Senate or no matter what it is, as long as it ain't sewage and water board and energy, this dude has literally ran for every time there's a space.
Right.
So think about it. What's your real priority?
Right.
Your priority ain't trying to help the people.
So basically, he's like a career politician.
He's a career politician. So wherever there's an opening, for there's going to be a runoff race.
Right. Exactly.
This person became DA. So now, now what we seen with Richardson,
right?
With Congressman Richardson. So now that he's with the Biden campaign, his seat is open.
Right.
So now Troy Carter comes out of nowhere and he's running for that seat.
Yeah.
And that's what. But I say that to say not to shit on Troy, but for the fact of the matter is, unfortunately, he is hyper representative of what I was mentioning earlier with these career politicians. And if you look at all these career politicians, you have to ask yourself, what change have you truly manifested?
Right.
Why are we still saying the same narratives? And the thing that gets me, I have a short attention span. Right. I can talk all day, yet I have a short attention span. Yeah. I don't know how them two things add up at all, right?
Well, yeah, go ahead. But I know how that works.
But is that we're seeing these politicians, these same names over and over and over and over and over again. But then if you ask for the change, what have you manifested? And I asked Strangely, I had this conversation earlier with a friend of mine, St. R graduate. He's and I'm gonna just say, as usual, I'm gonna give it to you. He was talking about this whole thing with the police going on right now with the lack of morale and why we don't have enough police. And he's kind of constantly sitting on this fact of Mitch Landrieu did a hiring freeze.
Right.
Even though that hiring freeze was a part of the dissent.
The dissent decree. Yeah.
But the thing I had to remind him of was, bruh, what you got to remember is LaToya Cantrell served as a city council person under
Mitch
Landrieu for 8 years. For 8 years. So she was a part of everything that took place with the NOPD, the negative and the positive, the consent decree, and everything else.
Right.
So she had the insight, and she had so much insight that she knew what should have been done to make things better.
Right.
Yet, since 2018 up until today, we have seen the greatest number of NOPD officers leave the force.
Yeah.
For whatever reasons,
Yeah.
almost in our recent memory, we've never seen
Right.
this many NOPD officers leaving the force.
Right.
You know, out there in New Orleans East, what's that, 7th District?
Yeah, 7th district.
At most times, and again, this insight. This ain't
Right, yeah,
this
yeah.
ain't speculation. This insight. On average, there's 3 cops patrolling.
Right.
3 police, the entire New Orleans East. 3 police.
Yeah. I thought it was 3 police cars and like 6
Cars.
6 officers.
Yeah. You got
I mean, it don't make no
you got
better,
2
but
in the-
yeah.
it don't make no better.
Because one of the officers, cause I work for NOPD headquarters, I work for NCIC, and one of the officers, she patrol NOPD, she be by herself in the car.
Oh wow.
If your unit number is like 4 digits, they in the car by yourself.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
you know, I think that's that for me, I think, you know, which is a tactic to me personally. I think is a private sector tactic to literally downgrade the land to buy cheap.
What you talking about the East?
Yeah, the East. You know, like just like what's going on in place, you know, how many times, you know, yeah, and of course, Mayor Cantrell was a part of the on the city council during that administration that was kind of doing a lot of the you know, it was almost like they were discouraging any developer that wanted to develop that part of the city.
I'm gonna disagree with you on that.
Yeah.
Drew. You know, I don't disagree with you too much. But I'm
I
gonna
mean,
disagree with you on that.
Well, man, I use the case of, you know, the brothers that were trying to buy jazz land. They wanted to buy jazz land to make it a Tanger style outlet mall. They had that meeting with the mayor, and all of a sudden they changed their tune. And it's like, okay, so why are you changing your tune? Why? Well, you know, it was said that Mayor Landry told him, well, you know, I don't think there's enough room for 2 malls. But hold on, wait. New Orleans East by itself has 60,000 people. So you mean to tell me that the same 60,000 people, you know, when you go across the lake to Slidell, there's only 50,000 people in Slidell. You mean to tell me that they can do commerce more than what happens in what happens in the East? Because the people in the East do not go and shop at the Riverwalk.
Well,
that's the reality.
One of the things that when it comes to economic development, one of the things that the developers, the economic development teams, the outside teams, one thing they look at is not just population. They actually look at the amount of home ownership. They actually look at the amount of salaries, et cetera. And what's unfortunately has happened out with New Orleans East is that we have lost so much home ownership. Is that New Orleans East at this point, I want to say it's like 70% renters, not just apartments, but even houses. It's like, you know, those numbers may be wrong, so don't quote me, but it's above 50% in terms of renters. So that number is now imbalanced. You see what I'm saying? So when the economic developers want to come in, they're looking at home ownership because those homeowners actually have more fluid income that they can spend.
Of course.
Whereas compared to a renter. But this is what's going to make me go back to, this is the only thing I really disagree with. This makes me go back to, again, these same people who have been in these same positions forever. So when I got to the administration, right? So for some reason, suddenly within 24 hours after, you know, me starting this term with her, I went from an independent office to being a part of the Office of Economic Development, right? Now, the director at that time had been within City Hall since like Bartholomew for like 30 years.
Right, yeah.
Like 30 years. Dude, I'm in my 40s.
Yeah, right.
She had been there for like, in City Hall for like 30 years.
Right, yeah.
Right? So then you're looking at the next person in charge, you know, of like economic development, right? You know, he had been in City Hall for like 30 years, 25 years. So I'm saying this to say all these key people in economic development have been there for decades.
Right.
You tell me, and that's not including New Orleans BA,
Right.
the business alliance, which was started under Landrew, right? Which is also economic development.
Right.
So you have an Office of Economic Development within City Hall, but then you have the city paying millions of dollars for a nonprofit Office of Economic Development, right?
Right.
So that's your first thing. So you button heads.
Right.
So you duplicating.
Right, yeah.
But going back to City Hall, tell me what job, honestly, can you have for 2, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years and have zero outcomes.
Something ain't right. Somebody's productivity messed up.
Right, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And these are the things that, you know, these are the conversations that I enjoy because I try to probe my community to ask the questions. And for whatever reason, it seems that we're afraid to ask those questions. What is the productivity that has been coming out of this Office of Economic Development? And that goes back to New Orleans East.
Right.
So you had Gray, who was a city council person in New Orleans East for, 8 years? And what did we get out of it? Dollar General? We got Dollar Generals.
The dollar stores,
Dollar
period.
stores and Dollar Generals.
Yeah.
And now, 90% of them closed.
Right.
Come on now. 90% of them didn't close. So why is it that we allow this person to remain as a city council person for all that amount of time?
Right.
And we saw no development at all.
Right.
And then we allow these big developers to play the game. You know, you got Lowe's that come in. Lowe's came in. But think about how much Lowe's support was state funding, tax credits, city funding, and state credits.
Right.
It's like any public development project. All you got to do is hold on to it for a certain amount of time.
Right.
You pull out. They got their money already.
Right.
Well,
That's a write-off for Lowe's.
I kind of, in essence, I kind of foresaw that because Lowe's, I'm like, okay, well, I see the temporary. It's like I saw the temporary.
Not me. I
gains.
thought it,
No,
I thought it was
not for
beautiful.
us. Not for us as a
Right.
city, but it's like I saw it for Lowe's.
Okay.
For Lowe's itself, Lowe's is like, okay, we're in the middle of one of
They're
the most
rebuilding.
disastered areas, in the country.
And Home Depot getting all that cheese.
And
now.
Home Depot racking up that type of thing. So what we gonna do? We gonna build the biggest Lowe's in America. And we're not even worried about if they can develop a mall or anything around us. It does not matter. So as long as we can get all of these, cuts and kickbacks and whatever have yous, it was all good. It was all good. But I think soon as that funding, that resource started to dry up, it's like we can't sustain that type of thing. So man, it might be just best for us to keep our little one in
Take
Central
that
City.
loss and keep on rolling.
Take that loss and keep
But
on
I'm
rolling.
going to say this and then we can change topics. I'm going to say this. If any, and I'm going to give you this gem because I actually haven't said this yet on my own podcast. So I'm going to give you this gem.
All right. You heard it here first.
All the things that we talked about in terms of what we think about damn if you do and damn if you don't, which actually if I didn't have on this long sleeve, that's what my tattoos say on my arm. One say damn if you do, and one say damn if you don't. I told my wife when I died, that's how I want to be buried. Put me on the fucking cross, damn, because that's what I did my whole life. You're damn if you do, you're damn if you don't.
Right.
So we started with that whole thing. You're damn if you do, you're damn if you don't. We talked about this whole administration deal, the choice that you choose to make. But this is what I will say. There's also been this conversation about moving City Hall to Congo Square, to Armstrong Park, which again is so culturally disrespectful until it's crazy. I don't know which was worse, putting the fence up or talking about putting City Hall there, which is the worst of cultural disrespect. They're both so hyper culturally disrespectful.
Okay.
But if you want to see if your mayor, your city council, your senators, all your political folk who talk all this jumba, if you want to see how committed they really are, not only to improving this city, but also taking a space like New Orleans East and creating some economic development, move City Hall to New Orleans East. You got all the infrastructure, you got all the land,
Right.
and it's one of the most economically depressed in our city.
Right.
There would be nothing greater to create. I don't know why I keep using the word hyper today. There would be nothing greater to create massive economic development for New Orleans East than moving City Hall out to New Orleans East, where the old plaza used to be, or where the old Liberty buildings used to be. I say take that whole infrastructure. As a matter of fact, I got a drone video that I'm gonna be dropping in 2 weeks that's highlighted all. But you have all the space, all the infrastructure, all the parking, all the excess.
Right. You ain't got no excuse for parking.
No excuse. Not only that, you can run buses. You can like we used to have the express buses. You can create express buses from downtown to the New Orleans East City Hall complex. Do all your work and catch that bus right back. You got
one
space
bus line
for every agency, every agency possible, plus new agencies.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? You can create your economic park. What's it called? The New Orleans East Economic Development Park, which ain't nothing but woods and a concrete building.
Yeah.
You put all this, bro. Not only do you have the infrastructure, it could be innovative for an urban city to have that much space for a city hall complex.
Nah, I will
If
tell
they
you
serious
this.
about it, that's where you'll see city
I
hall.
will tell you this. Your problem is
I
you're
think too
thinking
much.
with you're thinking with logic.
I think too much.
You're thinking with logic.
Repeat it one more time, Drew. You doing what? You're thinking with logic.
You're thinking with logic, but you're trying to use logic, bro. That's the whole thing.
That's my downfall, man.
Okay, but so we kind of still restricted on time because I usually still try and keep it, as minimized as I can because I don't want to draw it out.
Just do it one
But
part
I
two,
will. But I said because I want to end here. I will say this. At some point I'm gonna have a panel. Good old political panel. For one of my episodes, and I definitely want you to be back because I want that the every point of view heard and put out there, with the sole intention of how do we make this better.
I'm down for it, man. For me, it's just and you know me, Drew. You've been like you mentioned, bro. We've been friends a long time. And one thing about me is that I work at I'm very sincere.
Yeah.
I'm very honest, and sometimes my honesty causes discomfort for other people. I'm cool with that. My dad always told me, don't worry about people that don't pay your bills.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And Shanika Miller, the only person to help me pay bills.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm cool with that. But, how do I say this? I've dedicated so much of my life to giving back to this city. And again, I've tried it from the classroom to city hall.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I don't have much longer to be doing it.
Right.
And I don't say that in terms of like
out.
I'm out. I say that in terms of once my baby girl graduates from high school, that's the white flag for me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's the white flag for me. At that point, my wife and I are living life loud. We traveling, we vacationing, and what's gonna be for New Orleans is what it's gonna be.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm gonna be good because I'm continually focusing on the things that are most important for me and my family. Yeah. But I know that a part of my legacy will be that no one will ever be able to say I didn't give my all to try to help my city be the best New Orleans that it can be. And
and that's all New Orleans can ask for. So I mean, I understand that. I understand that, wholeheartedly. I want to thank you for coming, grace your presence, on the podcast because there's a lot of things we didn't get to.
Oh man,
bro,
this conversation.
But you know us, we can do this all day long. So, but I definitely want you back, and we're gonna make it even better. We're gonna take that to the next level, of just dialogue.
Let's keep it going, man. Thank you for having me, and again, congratulations on deciding to take this jump and start doing your podcast. I know there's a lot that goes into it, as you know.
Yeah, right.
I've done a lot of, bro, over 100, man.
Yeah.
But man, just keep it up. But I'm gonna say this, man. The one thing with Black folk is that our narratives matter because everyone tells our stories except for us. And we should not be afraid to share our narrative and tell our narrative. And I can tell you firsthand, you're gonna piss some people off,
of course.
But this isn't a thing about trying to make friends. This is a thing about trying to get the truth out and trying to let people get these realities.
Of course, being a black man from New Orleans, I'm going to piss people off, because
we're supposed to talk about colorism too.
Oh yeah, like I said, there's a number of issues that we can get to, bro. Trust me, and I think that's the main reason why I even brought this podcast out, because I wanted to. I've always been that type of person to put the conversation out there and that type of thing. So this is exactly what I was trying to deal with this, with this space and everything else.
Cool.
So on that note, thank you, Dr. Brice Miller. My name is Andrew Bayham, Swerve Music, Brother Rose Beef Jenkins. And we'll see y'all next time. Peace.
Jasmine Sullivan needs some love in her life.